everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. Here again to remind you that this can be the best season of your life. By now, you should know and you should be convinced, you should be fully persuaded that you have got everything it takes to create the life that you want. Stop paying attention to naysayers. Stop paying attention to people that are negative, people that are limited in their belief system, people that are pessimistic. Stop listening to those kind of people. You have the ability to live life on your own terms. You just need to start working on yourself, and you can pivot regardless of where you are at now in life. You can always pivot on a dime. You can make a sudden turn so that you change your mindset, the way you think, the way you imagine things, the way you see things, your perspective on things, so that you can come into a life that is meaningful and fulfilled. Because the whole thing about this is you want to start living life now. You don't want to put it off. You don't want to wait. And I know that, some of you, it's like I had someone told me this week. She said, I am not of this world and this is not my life and so forth. So, for those of you that think that way, then this show is not for you, because the whole purpose of this show is characterized by motivating and encouraging you to live a great life now, your best life now, because now is what you got. Right now is what you have. Years ago, I took on this path of going through a journey of self-discovery. And I'm telling you, it's the best thing that has happened to me. And it's been a long time. It's been a while. And when I started out on this journey, I realized from the onset, that a lot of the things that had me stuck was belief system, uh, limiting belief system, actually. And then in digging further, because, at the time I had a great job, working in corporate America and, earning a good salary, just really doing some great things. And, but come to find out, it was my religious indoctrination. There were things about my life that I just put on hold, on pause. I just couldn't move forward because there was the element of guilt and fear, judgment, all of that. And when we, left church and religion and all that doctrine, that's when I really started searching. And come to find out, once I realized that, I went to the root to find out why did I believe what I believed? And once I discovered my truth, that is the truth that set me free. And as a result, we've been living a great life. Not that we didn't do in the past, but it was so restricted. It was under the constraints of rules and laws and, just people's opinions, claims, biblical narratives, and all of that, And it's mainly me, not my husband, because my husband didn't come from a religious background, and neither did I. I didn't grow up in a religious background, but when I became an adult, at one of my very vulnerable moments, I got born again, and from that, my life just took it just took on a characteristic of just so restrained, but it became normal. And then when I met my husband, he kind of came into my camp, and we, walked that walk for several years until he said, "No mas, that's it. Let's just move on," and so forth. And let me preface that when we left our church, because that's when we changed our life, we didn't leave angry. There was no anger. There was no abuse. There was no trauma. There was no hurt. There was none of that. We just, my husband just said, "That's it. It's the same message. We're not growing. They're just regurgitating the same message week after week after week." And he didn't find that anyway as progressive. So, he didn't pressure me, but he just said, we have just got to do something else, search for different, lifestyle and so forth. So after a couple of months, I decided, yes, you're right. And we just said we were going to take a sabbatical. Little did I know this sabbatical was going to result in what, like 15 years now, and 15 amazing years. That is my story. And of course, it's capsulized. Now, I'm also a certified transformational life coach. And the stories that I'm hearing today are people that are going through a religious deconstruction. When I started my journey of self discovery years ago, that's what I called it, a journey of self discovery, because I knew that the identity that I had taken on was an identity imposed upon me by the religious indoctrination that I've had over the years. I live off of the information taught from the pulpit, the pastor, the preacher, the evangelist, everybody that came through, that whose doctrine I submitted to, and which was the Christian doctrine. And so my whole personality was shaped because of that. Because it's a message of fear and guilt and sin. Because of course, you're told that you're wretched, you're born in iniquity, you are a sinner, and that's a big one. That you're a sinner, so you don't want to be that. Of course, that is not part of my life at this time, but that's the way I live. So you live with that personality, you live with that identity, you live with those thoughts about yourself, which are not true once you discover the truth. The thing that I have found out is when you learn the truth will set you free. It'll first make you angry. It'll piss you off first. Because, we are so attached to the information. We're so attached to the doctrine. We are so attached to what we were taught. And one thing that I have learned is that most people, Christians, believers, religious people, they don't read the Bible. So you are going through life with a whole different mindset. You haven't read the Bible, so you don't know what it says. We're just going by what is taught from the pulpit. So you keep that in mind, and come to find out also that even though I was one of the ones that did read the Bible, because I was like, I need to find out what this is. And I read it from cover to cover more than once. I had like 100 Bibles, got rid of them. But I read it with confirmation bias, total bias. Again, based on the information that was taught to me. And a lot of the information that's taught to you are based on claims, views, opinions, and all of that interpretation. No wonder you have 1,000, a whole bunch of interpretation, because people have opinions, people have different views, different perceptions. And then I start questioning, well, why should I subscribe more value to someone else's interpretation? What about myself? So I went back and I read it, but I got a new set of lens to read it with a new set of lens. So I started reading the Bible with a critical thinking mind for what it is. I wasn't interested in interpretation, or people say, you're reading out of context. That's not what I did. I read it the way it was written, because my assessment has as much value as someone else's. The NIV, the KB, the King James Version, the, New American Version, all of that. That's why there's so many. So I started to read it again with a critical thinking mind. And I went back and I got stuck in the Garden of Eden. Because the whole thing is this. I had to discover who this author is. I had to discover the author of the Bible, or at least those that claim God is the author of the Bible. Not God, but Yahweh. God is, I'm talking about Yahweh if we want to give it a name. And I had to come up with one or two conclusions. Either these theologians, scholars, and all those that created the Bible, they created a God that is, in my mind, wicked and barbaric, or that God doesn't exist at all. You have to come up with some kind of assessment. And again, if you're reading with a critical thinking mind, and if you're honest with yourself, intellectually honest with yourself, not emotionally, because we can romanticize this whole Bible and make it seem so fuzzy. That's what the pastors do. They talk about God being full of grace and forgiving and all of that. And all of that, we can romanticize it. And that's why we say God is good all the time. But when you read it, you come up with a whole different notion. You come up with a whole different perspective. You start questioning, wait a minute, who is this person? So I got stuck in the Bible, and most of you know the story. God created Adam and he created Eve. He planted them in the garden, but before he created Eve, he told Adam, who is in the Garden of Eden, he said to Adam, he said, of all the trees in this garden, because it was a big garden, but then where is Eden is it's sectioned off. And he said, of all the trees in this garden of Eden, you may eat of all the fruit from those trees, but of this tree you may not eat, because you will discover the knowledge of good and evil, and you shall surely die. That's what God, Yahweh, said to Adam. So Eve came along and she's there. Now, keep in mind, we have been taught that God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. That means he's all powerful. He has the power to create anything, anyone, anytime, any place. He is omniscient. That means he knows everything before and after. He knows what you're going to do, what you're going to choose, what you're going to say, what God knows everything. And omnipresent, that means he is everywhere. There is no place you can go where God is not. And even till today, we believe that God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. So we know that Adam and Eve, they were in the garden, and there's Adam and Eve, and there's the garden, and God also created the snake. He also created the serpent. So Eve goes over to the tree. Now I don't know where Adam was, and she goes over to the tree, and she takes the fruit and she eats it. Well, she takes the fruit, and the serpent shows up and say, take it or whatever. And she said, no, because we shall surely die. He says, you shall not surely die. You know the story. The point is this. My question is this. You know the story, but my question is this. God knew when he created them. Remember, he's omniscient. He already knew. He foreknew the choices that they were going to make. He knew it. And he had the power to circumvent that behavior because he was there. He was present. So it's like, what's up with that? It's like God set up Adam and Eve to fail. This whole creation, he set us up to fail. He set up the whole creation from Adam and Eve up until now, today, you, me, her, your mother, your father, your sister, your children. He set us up to fail. What is up with that? What is up with that? I got stuck in the Bible because I kept saying, I said, wait a minute, man, I can't trust you. I can trust my earthly father more than I can trust you, God. He set them up to fail because he knew that they would be, he created the serpent, and in his power, he had the serpent tempt them. But he knew that they were going to submit to that temptation and take of the fruit. Eve took the fruit and she ate of the fruit. Now, when I think of that, because again, read it with critical thinking. when I think of that, I'm like, God, you set them up to fail. How wicked is that? You need to be real with yourself, real with the situation, real with your understanding and your perspective of this thing called uh, narrative of religious doctrine. So he set them up to fail, and they ate, and he kicked them out from his presence, just kicked them out from his presence. And I started asking these questions about God's compassion and so forth. And so I was stuck in the garden, and then I kind of moved on to find out, to learn some more of the characteristics of this Yahweh God, because one of the things that is important to understand is that what I have learned about this God is that He demands obedience and worship. That's it. He could have created humans to worship him from the get-go. Just create humans that would be obedient, that would want to worship you, that would want to be with you, that would obey everything that you say. Create them, because you were in control. Then you were in control. Now you talk about we have free will. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about then he started it again according to the narrative of the Bible. For those of you that believe that, I used to, not anymore. But if you go by that, how wicked is that? Would you do that to your children? Would you throw your 2-year-old baby in the swimming pool, in the ocean, if you know that baby cannot swim? Would you do that? No, you're setting him up to fail, to die. And that's why God said, the minute you not touch it, but eat it, you shall surely die. And they ate it and they died. He kicked them out of his presence. Just think of it. Pause for a second. Is that something you would do to your child? To your children? Is that something you would do? You would set them up to fail? That you would set them up to fail in life? No. You got parents that take out loans so that their children can go to college to get a good education. You have parents that would work 2 jobs to provide the best for their children. My dad owned a business, but he also worked for the Panama Canal, and he took his pride in being able to provide for his family. He was a great provider, my dad, and my mom was just, she administered the household, and I had a great childhood. That's just my story. So just think of it. Is that something that you would do to your children? But he did. And then I start looking at other characteristics. As a matter of fact, this person, I don't know if I read this before, but this woman, she shared this, and it really touched my heart, because again, most of you are going through religious deconstruction, and for many of you, it's as a result of abuse, some sexual abuse within the church, trauma, hurt, pain, shame, guilt, and until you come away. So, and then when you come away, you have this separation anxiety. Why? Because it's like you're leaving your family. When you separate from church, for us, it wasn't that way, because, we were resolute in our decision. So we just left, and, with time, we garnered new friends and created different relationships, and, just a few folks from church remain close with us, and that's great. But but separation anxiety is a real thing. You go through that, because when you have a family like the church family, you could call them, you could You could to pray. You after church, you go out to dinner, and you all believe the same things. You're talking the same thing. You're having Bible studies, praise and worship time. You do all of that. That's I used to do that. That was our lives. It was so structured. Go to church during the week, and on Sunday, you go to church, and it was like an all day thing because church lasted like 3 to 4 hours, just a long time. Because after church, you go through stuff, and we were active, so we were like active leaders, so we put in a lot more time. So you're going through this whole thing of deconstructing from religious narrative, from religious indoctrination. And I have heard testimonies of people that have had it really, really bad. For instance, this woman, she said she grew up in a church in the apostolic religion. She says, I was taught to resist the temptation of a sinful life and to live modestly. You see that? Can't even wear altar tops. And I remember when I was at one church and I was dating my husband, and I used to wear these leggings, tights, and halter top and whatever. And one of the pastors said something about made some kind of a comment to someone about that I shouldn't be wearing that because it's too tempting and all that kind of stuff. But I wore it anyway because at that time I was I don't even know, we were kind of like I was really into my husband, and I felt a little more free, and I knew that we were going to be leaving that church. We weren't married yet, but anyway, so here she's saying that she has to live modestly. That means everything in moderation. No, nothing ostentatious, nothing loud, just very modest. And she says, I couldn't wear makeup. Imagine it. I couldn't wear makeup, jewelry, wear pants, no drinking, and no dancing. Imagine. But that was the, I guess it's called apostolic. No dancing, no drinking, can't wear pants, can't wear jewelry, no makeup. It says she had to befriend the pastor, she had to contribute financially to the church, and she had to give testimonies and so on. I guess every so on you go up and you give a testimony of what God has done in your life and so forth. She goes, I was told that I was bad, that I was wretched, a sinner, and that I was born in iniquity. Just imagine you have a little baby and the baby is just, born. And, as the baby grows, you start telling, just like, you see on social media how, babies are like that, praising and because they're mimicking what they see in church. But telling your kid that they were born in sin, that they're sinners and they need to be saved and so forth. Anyway, she goes, and that she's nothing. She was told, you are nothing without God. So she lived her life making sure that she gave God credit, honor, glory, praise for everything, and worship for everything that happened to her. Everything that was good, she made sure because she knew that she was nothing without God. She could achieve nothing. She could accomplish nothing. Even if she went to school, she went to college, she, got a degree, she got her master's. And, she was told, you are nothing without God. Imagine that. When I grew up, my dad, he was just happy to know of my accomplishments. He didn't, and I would say, Dad, thank you and whatever. Thank you for making a way, but you don't get the credit. I put in the work. And he was okay with that. That was not even a topic of discussion. My dad was just happy that, and especially me, those of you that have heard my stories, I was in boarding school and got kicked out 3 times out of boarding school. And, my parents thought there was something wrong with me and so forth. Anyway, they realized I was perfectly fine, just missing my home. And they brought me home. I went to school, became an honor student, and that is my story. But in her case, they told her she is nothing without God. She said, I have suffered all my life trying to be good and find something that was missing. She was trying to be good and to find something there was a missing link where she could live and take a breather and live without guilt and fear and shame and judgment and criticism. She wanted to be able to live. She said, I knew there was something missing. And then she said, I knew that in order for me to live, something had to die. So I left my home, my family, my job, and everything and moved to another state. That was her way of saying enough, enough. She said, here I was hating myself, thinking I was so bad. And I'm 60 years old and have no idea who the hell I am. That's what she said. And then there were some tears. She said, I have no idea who I am. So when I talk about, most of us, live a life with an identity that's been imposed upon us, it is true. But that's not easy to accept or admit because we like to think that we know who we are. But she, in her mind, she was told, you are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. She could not even process that. What did that mean? What does that mean? You're a child of a king. You're a child of the king. You're a child of God. What does that mean? I'm a child of my dad. And I could go to my dad and ask, if I had, when they brought me back from boarding school, once they expelled me the last time, my dad thought, my parents thought there was something wrong with me. And they took me to, to mental professional, like a psychologist, and they did a battery of tests to find out if something was wrong with me. My point is, my dad, my parents wanted to know. They wanted to know so that they could fix it. And here this person is, she's living a different identity that's not really hers, and she doesn't know how to fix it. So she leaves her environment determined in her mind, and now she's going through religious deconstruction. I find it interesting because now it's known as religious deconstruction. I've always called it, or that journey of as a journey of self-discovery. And I didn't realize, like, for me, when I set out to start my journey of self-discovery, I didn't think in terms of I didn't think in terms of religious deconstruction because there was nothing for me to deconstruct. Now, I had to unlearn everything that I'd been taught, and that's not easy. I had to unlearn, but I was so determined, just basic things about life. Let's say, for instance, I like to have a glass of wine, and I didn't drink at all. Didn't drink, not because I didn't want to. It's just because of it was the law. It was frowned upon in the circle that I was in. It was frowned upon, so I just didn't drink. But as I start, so wait a minute, no, that's what I want to do. I remember my husband; he would go to the. By the time we were married, and he would go to the because my husband used to have a glass of wine, and by then I started also accompanying him with a glass of wine, and he would go to the liquor store, goody goody, to buy a bottle of wine. At that time, they weren't selling in the grocery stores, and I would stay in the car. I would stay in the car because I was afraid that if somebody saw me, how would that look? So I stayed in the car, and he went in. Anyway, hypocrite. Imagine that. That's hypocritical. No wonder they call Christians hypocrite. I was one of those. So anyway, and I call that a journey of self-discovery. I was discovering who I am, and I wanted to come into this place of authenticity, to know my true authentic self, and to act that way, to be above board and normal and confident and be assertive in what I know. So I had to really learn it. I really had to, introspect a lot and really find out who is me. And as I did that, I became empowered. It's like self empowerment. And I didn't care what people thought or said, or I didn't, but it took a while for that. I don't know if you call that a while. I mean, it happened gradually. And this person, they're going through uh, religious deconstruction, but it's tough. Um, not only are they dealing with breaking separation anxiety, breaking up or leaving the community that she grew up in, the church, the doctrine, all the things that was taught, all the laws, the rules that were the commandments that were, seared into her psychic, into her mind, into her whole being. And, people just sob. They sob when they realize, wait a minute, this is not me. I don't know who this person is. And it's sad. And that's why now, my show has taken a whole uh, turn, because the whole idea that I started the show was to really help people to live a life that's meaningful and fulfilling and happy, and just live unapologetically. Know who you are, go where you want, do what you want, and be happy. As long as your freedom does not infringe on the freedom of someone else, you can do whatever you want. And I like to see people happy. That's why I love to see people's pictures and the things that they do, and people live different lifestyles and have different personalities and so forth. And I just wanted to be an encouragement. So it started with the happy mindset, and that had to do with, the way you think is how you can live. Just create an image, visualize it, and just go through these steps, and it'll happen. But now I am learning that you have some challenges getting to that point, getting to that season of your life that you can call the best season of your life. Why? Because you've got this situation going on here based on religious indoctrination. And why? Because all you know is what you've been taught. And unless you go through the Bible for yourself, and come up with your own reason, and you have to be bullish about this, because, people talk about faith and you go by faith. Well, faith is a belief system. Faith is a mental condition that defies logical reasoning. And it doesn't go with this, because, that's why you look around and you say, well, why people say, well, God doesn't answer prayers, because, again, faith is, again, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But then it says, hope deferred makes your heart sick. So when you have faith for something and you're hoping and it doesn't happen, it's deferred and your heart becomes sick. What happens there is that stress comes upon you. Anxiety, worry, fear, doubt, and all of that. Why? Because hope is deferred. One of the things that in religion we are taught is governed by guilt, fear, and hope. Guilt, fear, and hope. It says, for you to even go forward, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So you start out with fear. We are taught to fear in such a way that you know that God is always present. You know that God is always there. You know that God knows of everything, what you're thinking, and you feel guilty. You feel upset. You can't get rid of these thoughts. People that are involved in secret lives and so forth, and they live with guilt and shame and judgment and criticism and all of that, and you don't know how to get rid of that. So, and then you're afraid. So every Sunday you go to the altar and you confess and you pray, and they have they get airplane oil and lay hands on you with oil and anointing oil, and every Sunday, and your life is in such turmoil. That's abuse. That is abuse. That is abuse. So we're taught to fear. I wouldn't, my dad wasn't my dad was a provider. And I could say, Dad, I would love to have a bicycle. Okay, we'll go Saturday to the store, get your bike. Dad, can I have a new pair of skates? We'll get your pair of skates. And that's how it was. I wasn't afraid. If he said no, he said no. Most of the time he said yes, because my dad prided himself in being able to provide for his family. So he gave us the best that he could, private schools, this and that he provided. That's what he could do in his limited ability as a human. But imagine God that is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. He knows everything, he sees everything, and he's present everywhere, and he has the ability to fix it. To fix it. So when this person, when she is told she's the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus, or that she's a child of the King, and her life is in such turmoil, even the mere anxiety that she's going through and the mental stress because of all this teaching, where is this God to bring her peace and calm and to soothe her mind, to say, it's okay? So as I continued my search, as I can, and when you think about it, God. Anyway, we'll touch that point after. The more I continue to search about this, the characteristics of this God, his character, what makes you tick? I know it's obedience and worship. I know that, but can we get a little? And he says, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. He says, I'm the Lord and I change it not. He says, I don't change. I do not change. I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. And now we can understand why, we don't see the needle moving from all the prayers that goes up. Then I discovered that this God last week I shared about Noah and the ark, and then I shared about Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah and so forth. And then this week I was reading up on the life of Moses. And evidently Moses thought he had a good, close relationship with God. I told you, for all of you that says, oh, it's not religion, it's not church, it's a relationship. No. Moses was the closest thing to God, the closest person to God, and he thought he was in a close relationship with God. And he was going through the desert with the children of Israel, and he's walking through, and they're thirsty. There's no water. They're in the desert. And he calls out to God, his close friend, and he said, look, they're thirsty. We need water. And God says, speak to the rock, and, water, just speak to the rock and you'll get water. And he speaks to the rock and nothing. He speaks to the rock and no water. So he takes his staff and he hits the rock. Water did come out. But guess what? God was not happy with that. Why? Because he lost his patience and he didn't trust, I guess. And God said, you will not reap up the blessing of this journey. You will not enter the promised land. And that was Moses. And then when he comes to a certain place and Mount Sinai, and he goes up the mountain to get instructions from God for the people that he was journeying through this desert. He goes to the mountain and he's there for a long time. And the people down here, they're waiting for him to come down with the instructions as to how they should live their lives and whatever. I guess they were waiting for a moral guide. And I tell you, the Bible is no moral compass. My moral compass is devised from my own consciousness. The things that I want done to me is how I treat people, love, kindness, compassion, and so forth. So they said, you know what? He's taking too long and we have a need to worship. So Aaron tells them, okay, give me all your jewelry, your gold, your earrings, your this, your that. And he created a golden calf. He created a golden calf and they started worshiping this golden calf, but they were having some fun. They were According to how it's depicted in the Bible, they were having some fun and they were just relishing in their lasciviousness and just being human, because there are different types of human. We have different personalities, different characteristics, different attributes. We like different things. Some are loud, some are docile, some are bodacious, some are more confident, some are shy, some are quiet. We just express ourselves differently. So they were just having some fun. Remember, they were created that way. And so Moses comes down from Mount Sinai and see them having a bacchanal, having a party. And he gets mad because he saw the golden calf and whatever, and he breaks the tablets and so forth. And God was so pissed. God was so mad because they were worshiping an image, the golden calf. But it's just an image. And you know what he did? God, Yahweh. He opens the earth and he swallowed thousands of them. I think it was like 4,500 or something to that. I mean, he swallowed them up. The earth consumed them. He killed them. My assessment, that is barbaric. Wicked, barbaric. Your own children. I mean, you could have put them out and said, well, I don't know. It's just, again, either they wrote it in such a way, the Bible scholars and the, theologians and all that, that's the way they created the story. It's like, God parting the Red Sea. Come on. We don't see those things happening today. We see tsunami. Earthquake, flooding, hurricanes, tornadoes. We see all of that. Can we see, God stopping a tsunami from drowning people of a city? Can we see those that are affected by tornadoes and hurricane and all of that? Can we see him put a brakes on that force of destruction as it's coming? Can we see that today? Remember, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Can we see that today? Those are the questions that I ask myself. And, if you're listening to this, of course, you are already going through your religious deconstruction experience. So you will, once you hear this, you'll go back and start searching. That's why I don't give chapter and verse, because again, this is not a Bible study. You can go dig and search and look and get it for yourself, because when you get it, see, the thing is, the truth will set you free, but it will make you angry at first because you will resist it. You don't want to resist it. You will go back and try to read it in context and become an apologist, try to, find an excuse for God. He didn't mean it this way. He meant it that way. He didn't mean this. He didn't mean that. And none of that makes any sense, because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So anyway, he consumes them, and the Red Sea didn't part, and all of that. And then so now they're going through the desert, and they're coming upon these cities, and these cities have different gods. Remember, he said one of the first of the 10 commandments, I think the first one is, thou shalt have no other God but me. Thou shalt worship no other God but me. So evidently, God knows that there would be tendency of man to worship, whether it's idols or people that we elevate to that position of honor, of worth. And he said, thou shalt have no other gods but me. But these people, it's like, so he had them go through, he had them, there was the Battle of Jericho. It was the Battle of Jericho, and he said that he helped them conquer those in the city of Jericho, causing the walls to collapse after they marched around it 7 times, and they were able to siege. They were able to take over the city. And then there was the conquest of Canaan. Canaan was the land filled with, of milk and honey, and that's the land that they were going to possess. Okay, and God led them. He commanded them to conquer the land and to drive out its inhabitants. So one of the questions that I had was, what do you mean to drive out its inhabitants? It's like, what about those people? Do you not love them? The Canaanites, the Philistines, those from the city of Jericho, the Amalekites, the Moabites, the Midianites. You question, do you not love them too? Those are my questions. Because if they have no love from God, they are screwed. And that's why God said, he said, I will help you defeat the Midianites. Even if you have a small army and cause confusion among the enemies. And he said, I will force them out. And I want you to kill men, women, children, babies. I want you to kill them all. This is Yahweh. That's not taught from the Bible. And every time you bring it up, people have some kind of excuse and apologies and explanation, and you're reading it out of context and this and that and that. No, he ordered them to be killed. And then comes a question of God's chosen people. And, when I read, like, which is God's favorite people, and when I read that, favor, according to the dictionary, means acceptance, goodwill, and preferential treatment. God shows favor, and when they express remorse of sins, confess to Jesus, blah, blah. Anyway, preferential treatment. So if he killed the Canaanites, the Moabites, the Amalekites, what are you? What about the heathens? What about the Gentiles? What about the heathens? And you can say, oh, that's the Old Testament. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He says, I'm God and I change it not. He said, I change it not. I am God and I change it not. You need to decide what's going to work for you. You need to come to your own assessment, and no one can tell you what to do, what to think, how to feel, how to perceive this, your opinion, whatever claim. No one, you don't want to listen to anyone, because you are capable of really acquiring, you are capable of unpacking that information so that it becomes your truth. And then you decide what you want. But as you continue to delve in and to seek and to think and to question, you will see it becomes easier. It becomes easier. You become more confident because you start seeing things as they really are. And once you start digging and checking all kind of references to find out who actually wrote the Bible and the times it was written to, and all of that. Once you start digging through all of that, then you start learning, wait a minute, and you are able to make better assessment and see how it affects your life now. Because let me tell you, you are human and you are well alive. Well, the Canaanites, the Philistines, the Moabites, they Amalekites and the Moabites, they were people just like you were. Those that were swallowed up in the earth, they were also people. They were humans. So humanize all of it. What if it were you? What if it's now? Like people that die when there's hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis. When there's a God that can stop it. And then you find Christian and believer, they were spared from destruction, and they said, God is good, God answers prayers. But then down the road, a family of 10 has died, or 10 people have died. How does that work? It's like when it came to this whole issue of slave, obey your masters as unto the Lord. I questioned and I asked, and I said, what? How does this work? God, you never condone slavery ever. And slavery, you know what that is? It is unpaid, forced labor. There's no place in the Bible where it says that God condemn slavery. He condones it. He orders it. And he said, look, slaves, even if you're treated harsh, I want you to honor your masters as unto me. Praise your masters, work for him as unto me. Imagine that. Pray to him as unto me. Honor your masters as unto me. Slave. You know what a slave is? When you were owned, and then, with this whole, you could own people, and then you could have your descendants inherit them as well. And no matter how, when I think of slavery in the North, here in America, that went on for like 400 years. 400 years. And my question is, if they were praying to be freed, if they were praying for mercy and compassion from God, but at the same time, the slave masters were praying, let my slave be strong and healthy so that they can go out and work double, 20 hours double. Whose prayer is God answering? The slave masters or the slaves? Remember, the slaves are praying, and that's where all these songs come from. I'm not familiar with them because I grew up in Latin America and my experience is different. I've come to learn all of this history, and it just breaks my heart because in that case, you probably would have preferred to be dead. I probably would survive. I would have been like a Rosa Parks. What do you mean I got to sit in the back? Are you nuts? I'm sitting over here. So whose prayer was God answering? Whose prayer did he listen to? And then when they were mistreated in such a way, and they took them and just killed them for no reason, and after church anyway, you can read the story and ask God, where were you? What is it? Where do you fit in? Where do you fit in? Even today, that's why so many prayers go unanswered. So many prayers go unanswered. God knows your need. He knows you need more money. He knows you want a house. He knows you want a child. He knows you want, if your child is sick. What happens today is that we come to accept it. We come to accept that they can go through chemo, they can go through radiation, and they can go through this and that, when God, in his all-powerful ability, could heal them. Yet we go to St. Jude's and, the babies are there sick. Children's Hospital. You start asking these questions. Excuse me. You start asking these questions and you start digging through. And now I am just so curious about, to find out more things, because I want to find out the character, the attributes, the plans of this God. What is it? What is it about you that you either hate people so much, or, because I know one time he said that he repented from having created man. That's all. I think anyway. These writers, I don't know what kind of minds they had. They created this story, and then it's fed to us, and we believe it. So we go through life with an identity that's not ours, that's taken from the narrative of the Bible. And then you just go through, and you're not your true authentic self. Well, for those of you that are on this path of religious deconstruction, let me tell you, you will get there to a place. Just keep yourself in a community that have something in common, and are sharing their experiences of abuse, of trauma, of hurt, of anger, of mistreatment, all of that. And sometimes, you may be isolated in your own home because you may be the only one deconstructing. There's a man that shared the other day. He's got like 4 kids, and he's come to, he raised them in the church, and then now he's come to a place where he no longer believes in it, in the narrative of the Bible, the Christian doctrine. And he's trying to dial back and tell his children, this is no longer true. Don't believe this, live your lives and unlearn all the things that I force you to learn and so forth. And his kids told him, his kid thinks he's crazy, he's nuts, that he's backslidden and he's away from God, and they were praying for him because they are convinced he's going to hell. So he doesn't have a good relationship with his kids now because he is going through a religious deconstruction. He's unlearning all of those things. And, some people, they dabble, sometimes it's hard for people to come out because they dabble a little bit, or just like when I've heard testimonies of, or, stories of some of the people that are going through religious deconstruction. And when you ask them, are you a Christian? And they said, well, I believe in the Bible, or I follow Jesus. They don't want to admit or to think I'm a Christian. They don't want to think that way. They don't want to identify themselves as a Christian. And then they dabble, they keep some things, they get rid of some things. And, so it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Well, you need to learn the truth. Learn your truth, because that's the only truth that's going to set you free. That's the only truth. In the beginning, it'll make you angry. But if you continue to search, to dig, to ask questions, to learn of the right references, to seek out, because that's what I did. And then it brought me right back to the Bible to reread it, something that I didn't want to do because it's like, and I'm not reading it like from cover to cover. I'm just reading like initially to find out. My objective of how I read it now is to find out about God's character, his character. Why is he so angry? Why is he this way against his creation, his children, or those he calls children, or those that believe they're a child of God, when they have all these issues of sadness and lack, poverty, and loneliness, and just going through life just renqueando, just what do you call that? Limping. When they have a God they call a king. You have to deal with reality. Again, faith is a belief system. It is a mental condition, and it defies logical reasoning. Until you come to understand that and to acknowledge that, things are not going to change. And I am encouraging you, because you want to live a fulfilled life here. You want to enjoy your life here. You want to have a meaningful life now, because I'm telling you, no one has been able to prove anything about heaven or hell. No one. I don't care what. And some people say, oh, yes, God spoke to me or whatever. Look, that's all in your imagination. Just be honest. We can be honest. So I am. But you won't learn your truth unless you're honest with yourself. It is your imagination. You imagine that because you're taught that God is so loving and compassionate and forgiving and all of that. But if you look at the character of God, it has a different picture, paints a different picture. So I'm going to leave you with that, my friend. I'm going to leave you with that, so that you can do your own search and come up with your own perspective to know the truth that will set you free. Every Thursday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we have a date right here. And if you can't make it, you can check out Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube every week and tune into the program. In the meantime, I will see you next Thursday, same time, same place. If you need to drop me a note, go to info@thecynthialinoxshow.com. And again, you already know that I'm a certified life coach, and I do offer a 30-minute complimentary chat before, so that you can decide if I'm the right match for you to help you just navigate through this journey. Sometimes it's helpful to have one. I have a coach, and for different situations, different area of my life, and it works for me. So in the meantime, I'm going to see you next week, same time, same place. Enjoy your weekend. There's Friday that's upon us, and then the weekend. Have fun. Ciao, hasta luego, amigos. Ta-ta, hasta la vista.